The February 24th, 2022 City of Friendswood Planning and Zoning Commission regular meeting is now called to order. We will begin by receiving any communication from the public or committee liaisons to the commission. To comply with provisions of the Open Meetings Act, the commission may not deliberate on subjects discussed under this agenda item. However, the commission may direct such subjects be placed on a later regular commission agenda for discussion and/or possible action. Is there anyone from the public that would like to speak at this time? Okay, seeing no one. Next is our consent agenda. These items are considered routine or ministerial in nature and will be enacted with one motion. There will be no separate discussion of items unless a commissioner so requests, in which case the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered separately.
Motion to split up one of the items from the consent agenda?
Or split the two items.
Split the two items for discussion.
You can just say motion to remove item A.
Motion to remove item A. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we need a second for that, I assume? I'll second. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Shows to be unanimous.
So,
Okay, so
Yep.
so we split them now. Now I got to go back and clean that up.
Take the vote for item B.
Yes. Okay, is there a motion to approve the partial final plat of Avalon at Friendswood, Section 2, a private and gated community?
Motion to approve item B. Second.
Okay, motion and a second. All in favor? Shows to be unanimous. Okay. Okay. So now we can address the minutes. Is there a motion? I assume we'll do a motion to approve, and then we'll do that under the, so.
yeah. So, yeah, motion to approve the minutes of the last week's meeting?
Do you have amendments for those? You can include that with your motion.
Oh, okay. Well, I'd kind of like to talk it over, because usually when I bring an amendment, you say, wouldn't it be better to say it this way? And so,
Well, we need a second.
motion
Second.
to approve with amendments, I guess, because there will be some.
Well, you have to be probably more specific about the type of amendment, so probably, I think,
Okay, well, we'll go back.
I assume that's right, Karen Arby. We can't just say a general one, okay.
Second.
Okay. Mr. Sampson?
So my only comment on this was, there was a protracted discussion in the last meeting about would the fire commissioner or fire chief support a revision to the ordinance to allow others to enjoy the benefits that the fire station is allowed in terms of being 30 feet from a low volatility, a low volatile hydrocarbon pipeline for a non-residential. I think that's what the discussion was, for a non-residential place, non-residential zoned
commercial
area. Yeah. And so in the minutes, it really just says that they would support a variance procedure for similar circumstances, which is a little more vague than what it says in the YouTube video at the 55-minute mark, if you want to look at it. So what I propose is the minutes should indicate that the Fire Chief Kozlowski indicated that the fire department would not object to changing the code to a 30-foot setback for a stabilized crude oil line under similar circumstances. Because I believe that was reflected in there, and that was, I think I held up the meeting for probably 15 minutes to get to that point, and so I wanted to catch that point.
And the wording that you wrote down was off the YouTube video?
Say that again.
The wording that you wrote down, was that directly off the video
It's
or the
pretty
recording?
darn close.
Okay. So if you want to just amend your motion to include that statement?
Yes, I would like to amend my motion to include that the minute should indicate that the fire chief, it's easier to say. Thank you, sorry. You're okay with that, good, thank you. Thank you, Chief. Indicates the fire department would not object to changing the code to a 30-foot setback for a stabilized crude oil line under similar circumstances.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Shows to be unanimous.
One last question before we get off this. I guess maybe it's too late. Why does it say draft on the minutes?
We haven't approved it.
Okay, we approved a draft.
She just removes that when she
Okay, we
signs
do that
them
at the
and
same time.
posts
That was
them
an
once
omission, not
they're
commission.
approved.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, next on our agenda are action items. According to the Planning and Zoning Rules of Procedure R 2021-18, all action of the commission shall be made by an affirmative vote of 4 or more members of the commission present at such commission meetings. Our first action item tonight is to consider approval of a site plan amendment for the law office located at 17131 Towns Road. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve?
I'll second.
Aubrey, is there a staff summary on this?
Yes, so this is an existing building that's located at 17131 Towns Road. The current, I think it's a new owner, is remodeling the interior of the building and just extending the front porch. The property is zoned neighborhood commercial, and there's not really any, they're not changing the parking. There's actually a shared parking agreement from 2016 with the adjacent 2-story building. So that is not going away. It was labeled on the site plan. And we also were able to get an accessible walkway from the building to the existing public sidewalk as part of the renovations as well.
Okay. Commissioner Sasson, any questions?
Did you want to ask if there's someone from the?
Well, that's a great, good catch. Is the applicant here? Good evening, sir.
Hi, Saul.
Would you state your name for the record for us, please?
My name is Sal Tind. I'm the engineer record for the project.
Great. Any comments that you'd like to pass along to us
I mean,
before we start our discussion?
It's an old building that was an insurance company, Allstate, had occupied it. The current owners, attorneys, Steve Gonzalez, law firm, is buying it, and he wanted to renovate the interior to make it more fitting for his law office, and then he wanted more energy efficient windows. We're replacing the windows, and then essentially the front facade currently is a semicircle, and he wanted more apex. Then he'd be replacing the roof from a asphalt shingle to a metal roof, a dark color to match the bronze windows, and then he wants to paint the existing brick, which is red, to white. So essentially, it's primarily a lot of 90% of it's interior renovation. We're making the bathrooms ADA accessible, kitchen renovations, and his offices. All the interior doors are being taken out, but replaced with the glass, law firm type building.
No, looks good. Thank you. Why don't you hang out there just for a second, if you would.
Yeah, I
Commissioner
know.
Sasson.
I have no objection to it. I happen to personally like red brick better than white, but it looks fine, and it's nice to get a refresh. This is mostly cosmetic, is what I can tell.
Yes.
And the new roof, I guess, after a while you got to replace them. So, no, I'm fine with this.
Commissioner Perry?
No comments here.
Commissioner Mann?
Outstanding.
Commissioner Hinckley?
No questions.
Commissioner Clark?
Just from my understanding, the only thing that we're really here for is the extension of the porch, right? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have no comments. Thanks.
None from me. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We have a motion to approve in a second. All in favor? Unanimous. Okay, our next action item is to consider approval of the site plan for the new fire station number 2 to be located at 2601 West Parkwood Avenue. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve. Second.
Aubrey, is there any additional staff summary on this?
Yes. So you've seen this a couple of times. Hopefully this will be the last time tonight. But we do have one more request. So this is for the new fire station. The colored elevations were in your backup material. We've been through several other processes with the property, and when we were going through the landscape plan review, the number of trees that were going to be required on the property was very difficult to fit on the property. With the property being subject to the community overlay district requirements, the perimeter landscaping is 1 tree per 30 feet rather than the other properties that aren't COD, which is 1 per 40. And due to the use of the property being a fire station, and it's a small tract, the back of the property is fenced, and they're going to have training sites back there, like a tower, a burn building, a concrete pad for car wreck demonstrations and things like that. And so the trees were really going to interfere with a lot of the planned uses behind the property. In addition to that, all the trees that were going to be planted behind were going to be in a fenced area and wouldn't be visible to the public anyways. So we talked to Parks and Rec. They have some locations that need some trees. And so you want to go, let's see. Okay, that one, nope. Is there one more? There we go. So Parks and Rec went out and looked at some locations to possibly the same amount of trees that would have been required at the fire station. We found locations for them at Old City Park. The dog park is in dire need of some shade trees, and these would be more visible to the public. And so we're requesting that you consider allowing, due to the nature of the use, to allow these trees to be planted on a different city property. Other than that, the facade of the building, meets the COD requirements. And there's not really any other major issues.
Okay. Chief, did you have any comments that you wanted to make prior to us starting our discussion? And if you would just state your name for the record, please.
Stan Kozlowski, Fire Chief. Well, it was a sarcastic term when I asked him if they came with a warranty.
Probably not for fire.
No. So I was a little concerned about the safety of the trees initially, but yeah, this is far better idea for the trees.
Okay. Great. Thank you. If you could just stay up there for a second, I
Absolutely.
suspect we'll have a question or two. Commissioner Clark.
I have no questions, thanks.
Okay. Commissioner Hinckley.
I like the plan, and I do like the idea of planting the trees elsewhere. I think that's a good consideration. But other than that, no questions.
Commissioner Mann.
Fantastic solution to a difficult problem on the property, and here it goes. And I like how you kept saying it'll be more visible to the public there than it would be at the back of the fire department. So, perfect.
Perfect. Commissioner Sasson.
Yeah, I like the look of the new building. It looks really much better than the old building. And so I think that's going to be really nice. And I do commend both you and Aubrey and the city staff for coming up with a good solution to using common sense instead of following the strict default code approach. So well done.
I have to give them all the credit. I was the one that just wanted to make sure if they had a warranty.
Commissioner Perry.
No comments.
Okay, just hang on one second. I just have a couple easy ones. But this one at least is for Aubrey. I couldn't quite figure out where the trash, or maybe you know too from the studying the plans. Where's the trash dumpster? Because we always on commercial buildings we ask that question every time on commercial building, retail, restaurant. But this particular one, I couldn't
back
really
one.
locate it.
Back one. Or that'd be, there we go. Point at it.
Oh, it should be right there.
Okay, right there behind those doors. Okay,
Exactly. It's got doors that cover it.
because
So we can get a
it'll be
straight-
facing the street.
Right. We can get a
Okay.
straight shot in with the vehicle, and then it'll be covered so that it won't be visible from the street.
Perfect, thank you. Another one then is the interior of the building really didn't give us much detail, and that's fine for what we're approving this evening. But I just want to go over one more time. What's the use on and I want to make sure I get this side of the building. It's the one next to the pipeline. That's the south side? Yes, the south side of the building. I know there's 3 bays. Then what's between those bays and the pipeline?
That's the mechanical side of the building. There'll be a breathing air compressor, what's called an SCBA room where they're filled, and there'll be a small mechanical shop workroom. Then there'll be an area for storage and PPE, and then a bathroom with a decon shower that'll be basically used to access the fire field to keep people out of the main section. We try to separate anything that may be a form of carcinogen from the main living quarters, so that's why it's completely separate over on the mechanical side.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I was just wanted to clarify that. And so one of the things I didn't notice, and I'm going to go back to Aubrey, so you're off the for just for a second. And that, is there a sidewalk as part of the front of this, or is it, okay, I couldn't quite,
They will be putting in a 5-foot sidewalk. It's going to be tight, but they're going to put it in.
okay.
Not very long. And there's
Yeah,
no
it's
sidewalk on
pretty
either
short.
side.
Right, it's a mostly driveway, I get that, but
You
Yeah.
have
We-
to start somewhere.
we are trying very much to not have, orphan side, places where there are no sidewalks right in the middle. At some point, that some of that land's gonna get developed.
Oh, absolutely. It's Friendswood. We're going
Yeah.
to the walls.
Right. Okay, so my last question, so you were worried about the warranty on the trees. So no, and I got that, and that was a great way to ask that question that you did. But is there grass back there, or was there gravel around this burn building and this tower? It looked to be on the drawing, it was grass. And I was like, if he's worried about the trees, I wonder how grass is gonna, do you happen to remember or know?
Well, the way it's set up, we do have the concrete area. There's one area where it will probably be gravel. There's a fair amount of storage. I suppose that there will eventually be grass, but we're basically building a pleasure pier concept because of the size of the property and the amount of material that we want to put in there for training. So if there's anything there that's got grass on it, it's not gonna be there for long.
I saw some references in the landscaping plan to grass, and I wasn't 100% sure where it was and wasn't. So what you're thinking is ultimately, if heat's gonna impact trees, it's gonna impact grass, and you guys will come up with the appropriate material. Okay, I just was curious.
Yeah, we've always had grass back there, but it's not anything that anybody would want on their lawn.
Oh.
But it's great for holding the dirt.
It said something about Bermuda. I thought I saw anyway. Last question. We talked about moving the trees from this east side of the property because no one could see it and that sort of thing. But the north and south, Aubrey, do we have any landscaping? I mean, for shrubs, not necessarily trees, but I noticed on the north and south side there really isn't. There's shrubs in the front, fronting 528, but there's nothing. Is there any requirements for any landscaping on the north or south side?
No, both of so on the north side, that property is zoned neighborhood commercial.
Okay.
It's another commercial
Right,
zone, so
right.
no screening is required. And then the property to the other side is the church, but there's also a 30-foot separation that the underlying zoning of that is single family, but with the separation of more than 30 feet, the screening's not required on that side either.
Perfect. That makes sense. I just wanted to go through it. Thank you very much.
Thank
Looking
you.
forward to seeing the new station.
So are we. Thank you.
No, thanks. All right. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
We need to
Oh.
amend that motion to
Oh.
approve the planting of the trees because the
Oh,
landscape
you're
plan
right.
shows
Thank
the
you.
trees on the
Good
property.
catch. Thank you.
So-
No, you're exactly right.
I'd like to amend my motion. Move to approve, subject to relocating the trees as described in the meeting notes tonight.
Second.
No, good catch. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Shows to be unanimous. Okay. Our final action item is to consider making a recommendation to City Council regarding proposed amendments to Appendix C, Zoning Ordinance Section 7J, Plan Unit Development, including the general purpose and description to add criteria to qualify for a plan unit development, decrease the percentage of allowable change in land use, add an expiration of 2 years, and add standards for revocation. Is there a motion?
Motion to approve.
Or is Karen going to ask me to reread that?
No, I think you have several options that maybe we need to give the staff report first, and then you can decide what your motion should be.
But we have to make the motion to move to discussion, right?
Motion.
but we can just go ahead and lay out the staff report for you, then you can
Uh,
have a motion. and
You're
second.
keeping me out of trouble, so if you tell me Aubrey can go first, that's fine with me.
That works.
Okay?
All right, so this is back on your agenda. We had the public hearing on February 10th, and we made a recommendation. But we were looking at some wording after that meeting and had some concerns with the one paragraph. There was just a one pager in your backup material to try and help explain. Can we go to the next slide? I think Becky put it. So we'll get to the paragraph in a minute, but the one paragraph, the intent of the subcommittee's recommendation for those changes was to ensure that any details such as landscaping or parking that are not detailed in a PUD are subject to established city ordinances. An example of this that's existing would be Avalon, Friendswood Trails, and West Ranch. They did not include like landscaping requirements for their single-family use, but our minimum landscape requirement is 1 tree per lot, and so we enforce that. The second concern was to ensure that single-family residential PUDs don't exceed the density allowed by SFR zoning. To date, this hasn't really been an issue. I put the lot comparison that we did for Avalon in your backup material that showed like all of the, West Ranch, all of them have been like 1.9, 1.7. I understand the need to, clean up the wording a little bit. So we've been doing some brainstorming. So options 4 and 5 are on your, we're on your computers tonight. When I had to post the agenda packet, I didn't really have a solution. So option 2, the problem with that one, it said that, okay, so I'll explain the issue with the paragraph.
Would it be easier to say options 4 and 5 or your recommendation? One of those is your recommendation. It addresses all the concerns.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe everybody else wants to hear. I
Yeah.
shouldn't have stopped you, but
No, it's fine. Do you want me to explain our concern with the way that it's written now?
I see nods. Yes.
Okay. All right. So the red line is option 2. That's what we voted on the last meeting. And it's on there. So it says, the current ordinance says, in no case shall a PUD be used for sole purpose of circumventing the intent of city ordinances or plans unless standards for elements of site design are specifically described in a rezoning ordinance for a PUD. All design and development standards shall apply to all land development within a PUD district. That's the way it's written now. The changes was to propose that all design and development standards of the previous zoning district shall apply. The problem with that is that if you're changing from, you could change from a previous planned unit development if we have to revise a PUD. You could change from single-family residential to a mixed-use PUD. So those instances, the previous zoning district wouldn't necessarily be a good solution if you leave out some detail of your PUD. So the second sentence says the density for any residential use within a PUD shall not exceed the maximum density allowed in the base zoning district. The issue with that is there's really not a base zoning district. It's not defined. So there again, this would really tie our hands with future PUD applications if they're going to include a multi-family use. Our maximum
or a mixed use, right?
A mixed use that would include multifamily. Our current max for multifamily is 12 units per acre. So we definitely don't want to, tie our hands. So, like I said, last minute, I found some wording actually from the city of Missouri City, and their wording seemed to be a little bit better. So options 4 and 5, I think they're similar. We may have a concern with item number option. Karen and I were going back and forth like right before the meeting with these. So her option is 4. So if you want to go with
5 is fine. We just need to make sure that we're talking about not only use regulations, but also property development regulations. So that would be the only
Let-
change if we were to
okay.
do that.
And I think the
Anything
development regulations would include the concern with the density.
That was my
Density,
question.
setback.
That's what I would, that's exactly what I was getting ready to ask
Okay.
first, so.
I think it includes it. Like,
I-
so unless otherwise approved,
Right,
then
they would have to stay
you're
within
subject
that,
to the most restrictive.
right.
So I'll, just for the record, because we don't have this in, on this slideshow, I'll read. So option 4 would read, in no case shall a PUD be used for the sole purpose of circumventing the intent of city ordinances or plans. For the PUD district, the use and property development regulations shall be the same as if each use approved in the PUD were situated in the most restrictive district in which such use is otherwise permitted in this ordinance, unless other restrictions and regulations are approved as part of the site plan in the PUD district.
So that's, yes, and that's option 4. And option 5 is very similar.
Yeah, it,
Okay,
yeah,
Okay.
it's
well,
just kind of flipped
yes,
backwards.
it flips the way it reads.
Yeah.
And it may, if that's tighter for land use, then I think that makes sense. So,
So the only issue in number 5 is that it just talks about use regulations applicable
Yes.
to a particular district. We just need to make sure that we include the.
no, I think 4 is fine too. I mean,
Either way, but I mean.
if you're more comfortable with 4, for me at least.
Yeah.
Okay.
Question, please. I'm not 100% sure what's meant at the end of this option 4 quote where it says the most restrictive district in which such use is otherwise permitted under this ordinance. What is that referring to? Like another PUD? Another? I guess I'm just not sure.
No, so this is basically just a blanket to cover small details that might be omitted from a planned unit development. Because when they give us a PUD, they have to give us their regulation matrix. They have to give us, if they want to deviate from our sign ordinance, they need to tell us how they're going to do that. If they want to do, so whatever they're going to deviate from, they give us the details. But if they don't give us those details, then we need to reference, for instance, like I said, the single family residential, to be able to enforce landscaping requirements, then it would be.
I mean, you're referring to the underlying district then, or the district before the PUD was approved.
Yeah.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
And now that we're starting a discussion, we're more into
Oh, okay.
discussion. Can we go ahead and have a motion, and then you can continue on?
We can. Okay, so we've had Aubrey's explanation. We need a motion to approve, but then we still are going to have to come back and amend that motion to include whatever language we get.
Well, you can have somebody can make a motion that they like option 4 or option 5. They can submit that out there, and y'all can talk about it and either vote that up or down and go to the next one.
We could get lucky. Okay. Is there such a motion? Does somebody want to make that one? I'll make a motion to approve option 4 as presented in our backup material provided tonight.
I'll second that.
So
Okay.
I think you really answered my main question on that. I want to say for other questions before we get off of that topic. But I think that the general intent is, do I have it right, that if some specific requirement is left off of the PUD, then this is a way to go back and capture that under our underlying ordinances. So like the tree is an example, if somehow it gets missed, unless it's specifically allowed and approved in the PUD, then it's the underlying. Now, but when somebody said that, you said, well, not necessarily. What district would you use for that most restrictive? Back to
So it would be
Next
more a similar use. So if it's if it's single family, then we would refer to our single family
Got it.
Regulations. If it's
Based off of what the PUD is going to be? Is that what you're
yeah,
saying?
yeah.
if it's not in the PUD,
Right.
or- and if if, for example, the development had mixed use and single-family residential, what I'm hearing is, oh, let's take care of that by saying, a similar use.
So using West Ranch as an example, which was mixed use, the commercial properties at the front would be sort of measured against normal commercial use ordinances, where the SFR stuff would apply farther in. Is that what?
Yeah, and for West Ranch, their commercial properties are not included in their PUD. They're still zoned CSC. But, so, I mean, you could use Whitcomb property for an example. I mean, you have the church and then the rest of that zoned commercial. So they, their PUD defined what uses was gonna be allowed on that property. They proposed some different, parking lot island requirements than what we had. They propose, there's different sign allowances in there. They're allowed up to 75 square feet on their monument signs due to the size of the property. So there are specifics written in there, but they still had to comply with community overlay district requirements because they're still subject to the COD.
Commissioner Mann?
Nope, that makes the most sense.
Commissioner Hinckley?
No, I understand the need for the change, and I'm fine with 4 or 5 myself, so.
Commissioner Clark?
I think I'm good with 4 at this point. Thanks.
Commissioner Sassen?
Yeah, I think I am too, but just to beat this dead horse one more time. If we had a area that was zoned both multifamily residential and single-family residential, and they were putting in homes, we would apply the multifamily residential to the homes on the multifamily regulations that are not specified to the single-family residential that we're putting in? Or are we going with use?
Use.
We're going with use, so it
So
doesn't.
we would apply our multifamily to the multifamily in the PUD.
If they were building multifamily, then we'd apply multifamily. So if someone makes a judgment on this is multifamily, this is single family, and that's a good goal. I like that goal. It makes it a little gray at times potentially, but I think you've done it as good as could be done. Thank you.
Commissioner Perry?
I think I get it. I mean, I think this protects us. It's a really complicated way of solving what we intended just for density, but maybe that net wasn't cast big enough. So the questions I have are outside of P&Z. So I'll get educated on that stuff later.
Okay, well, I have 2 hopefully very quick other comments on the PUD ordinance. One is, we spend a lot of time talking about the 10% deviation from whatever the developer brings in from their plan. And I know I've talked to others, and some people are concerned about 10% maybe not being enough. And one of the references was to the flood maps, as an example. On some properties, if the flood map was to be used in that property, the land use, the available land could be developable land could change, and then that would then, tie their hands with the developer. Yeah, I know you and I've talked about that back and forth. Anything further on that?
I had further conversations with senior staff, and I think their main concern is being too restrictive, and the consequence of that is the applicant having to go back through planning and zoning and city council to amend their application if they are changing more than, like, if we change to 10%, the consequences of that effect is requiring an applicant to go back through the whole process.
But is that very likely? Are there many circumstances that would ever require such a change? I mean, that was what got us comfortable with the smaller percentage, right? And the fact that other developers have come in themselves, limiting themselves to 10%. But
yeah, and I don't think it's an issue with, the West Ranches, the Avalons, the Friendswood trails. I I think there is a potential for a new planned unit development. There's discussions for the Whitcomb property to revise their planned unit development, and it's going to be a substantial project. And for that particular case, if we hamstring ourselves too much, we could find we just don't, like I said, the concern is making the applicant go back through the whole process for
But
10 or 15%.
once again, they're proposing what they think it's going to be, so it would only be a dramatic change to what they had originally planned and approved.
Right.
And so that would be the counter.
Other than like the example of the Whitcomb property, because that was done years ago when they had no idea what they were building, and so now the church is built, as an example, and the flood maps have changed, and so maybe that property maybe look a lot different. So in that case, where it's stale, where somebody comes in and says, this is the PUD I want, and then I think 10% is fine. But on something like this that's out there a little bit longer.
And we did, so if the Whitcomb property were to stay as is, they would be grandfathered under the 25%. So
not an issue for them. Okay.
yeah,
so
not
we
an
were
issue for the
using that for an
existing Whitcomb.
example.
But if they make a new application and we change this, they will be subject to the new
That was just one
percentages.
example. But and then 10% was just what we felt comfortable with. We thought everybody thought 25% was too lenient, too big a change on big parcels of land. So in the subcommittee, I mean, is there any reason that, I'm just throwing this out, I know it's late, but I'm just pushing and pulling on this. Is there anything wrong with, what's wrong with 15%, 12.5%? I'm just making up numbers, but is there any reason that 10% isn't going to be in our recommendation to council?
You know, from the subcommittee standpoint, I mean, we discussed it quite a bit, and actually, we even talked about going further than 10% to
Right.
5. But I mean, 15%, there's not really an issue with that. Anything's an improvement over 25%, truthfully. But 10% is I believe, a fair number, and it's not that you're limiting the person to not be able to make that change. It's just that they have to come back if it's above that. Correct? So it's not like you're actually limiting their changes to their property. They can still get it. They just have to come back.
Right, but timing on projects and all that sort, meeting deadlines and timetables. Okay. I'm just concerned that this is going to get changed by the time it gets to council. But if the subcommittee and you guys that have thought about this a lot think 10% is the right number, then 10% is the right number.
I would offer there are many onerous type things that large developments have to go through. When I look at this, I question whether or not 10% would prevent someone from doing a development in Friendswood versus someone else, and I don't think it's that egregious. I think the protection it affords Friendswood to make sure that large developments don't have significant change is a sufficient step.
Right,
for
there's
us.
not a bait and switch. Here's our plan, but we have 25%
Right.
leniency. Then next thing you know,
I don't-
what gets built is very different.
For a large development that's going to be contentious and complicated, I don't have a problem with having them come back. I understand it's waste of money and time, but there are other things that, and I would say more egregious hoops that developers have to jump through. This is just one to protect our interests.
Okay.
Well, and some of the developers have presented themselves at 10%, which is partially where that number also came from. So
Yeah, who would want to develop a plan with 25% variance? I mean, they probably hold themselves to a higher standard to begin with.
Oh,
And now that we have an expiration date on PUDs, it
Right.
won't be like it sits out there for 5 years and doesn't get anything built on it. And so the world won't change dramatically, hopefully, in that period.
right. Okay. No, I just wanted to bring it up one more time, make sure that's the direction.
I support too.
Okay. So last one, and that is, every time we all reread these things, you read it slightly different. And I just want to challenge back to the subcommittee a little bit to make sure I understand this. One of the requirements, we wrote section J1E4 that talked about specific requirements had to meet at least one of the specific requirements. I think this is from that section. And it says the land is proposed for development of a major employment center or of major economic benefit for the community and for which special design standards may be warranted. And the more I read that, I was like, why may be warranted? Could somebody misuse that? Well, they might be warranted. Maybe it's not. Is that too wide of a? I mean, I was wondering what would have been wrong with saying special design standards that are warranted.
Yeah.
And it's just that when I got to the maybe part, and again, you know, every time you read this, and I hate to bring it up at the last minute, but when I read it, I said, you know, I could at least ask. Was there a thought of the use of the term may be warranted versus is warranted?
So not necessarily on that exact wording, but I will say that was one of my concerns, just that whole statement altogether. And Richard may remember exactly how we ended that discussion, but
No.
I truthfully don't remember, but I do remember that being a concern for me, is the wording of that.
Yeah, I have no objection to what you're saying. I think firming that up and making it a code as opposed to a discretionary kind of thing.
Well, could anybody come in and say, well, it might be warranted, and you say maybe? Arby, I mean, again, you do this every day. Do you see an issue with tightening it up slightly that says it's not just that it might be one day warranted, but it is, you know, it is a special circumstance? I just thought it was too big an opening.
So a major employment center or major economic benefit for the community, which, yeah.
And for which special design standards may be warranted. Or am I reading it the wrong way? Which I could be.
I think you can still, whether you put may or is, I think you can still debate if it's warranted. So I would support putting more restrictive wording in there. You can still debate if it's warranted, whether it's an is or a may.
And the decision on whether it's warranted doesn't rest with the applicant, right? Because then they can just decide anything.
Yeah.
That's why we're here, to make those decisions. So being more restricted is fine. We can still debate it.
I like it when you stump them. Never happens.
Well, I hate to put people on. I should have warned you
That's fine.
that I had a question.
I'm just trying to think of like a specific, instance where that.
Or does it
would apply.
get us in the same spot? If it's the same spot, I'm not going to change the word.
I read it slightly different than you did. That it may be warranted. Not like maybe warranted, but that we may.
Oh, so that you would grant this because
That makes it like.
it gives you an opportunity, not as in might. Okay.
That's how I.
I could have just been reading it wrong.
Yeah.
This is thrilling dialogue for all of you that in the audience are watching this.
So my concern that I was thinking through was because it says and for which
Yes.
special design standard, if you change the may to is, then you're really tightening that up to where there's less flexibility in that because you're.
Well, when Travis mentioned the way he read it, I could see that. Maybe I'm just reading it. I was reading it. I read this 10 times before this and never had that concern. So I draw comfort from how you read it, and I'm okay. So
Okay.
let me withdraw that and let's move on.
Okay.
It's not worth changing things at the last minute.
Oh, I liked is. I would have voted for you.
Okay. So I think after all that, our motion stands. I think we have a motion to approve for using option 4 and a second. All in favor? Shows to be unanimous.
Good work on this.
Okay. Our next agenda topic is the consideration and possible action regarding future planning and zoning commission meeting dates. Aubrey?
Our next regular meeting is Thursday, March 10th. We do have a pretty good size agenda building up for that. So hopefully everyone can be here. And then the meeting after that would be Thursday, March 24th.
Great. Our final agenda topic is communications, and we'll start with the commissioner updates on liaison assignments or any general topics. Commissioner Perry.
I don't have anything. I haven't been to CDC meetings since they had their revamp. So where are they?
They actually haven't met.
Okay, that makes me feel better.
They're meeting next week.
Okay, yeah. I'm doing great. And that's all I have. Thanks.
Great. Commissioner Sasson.
Yeah, I haven't been to any outside meetings either. I have nothing to add.
Commissioner Mann.
Nothing to add.
Commissioner Hinckley.
No outside meetings. Am looking to get the subcommittee together here in the next week or so to go over a few things, but that's it.
Great. Commissioner Clark.
I missed the drainage district. I think you got that one.
I did.
Okay, and that would have been the only one. Thanks.
Okay, and as they mentioned, I did sit in on the Galveston County Consolidated Drainage District meeting that occurred earlier this week. They did review their annual fiscal report for their last fiscal year. They got a clean audit report, which is the highest that the auditors can bestow, so good news on that. I took just quick notes that might be of interest. Total assets minus total liabilities came out to be about $14 million, so more assets than liabilities, and that's about $1 million less than the prior fiscal year. Now, under that fiscal year, total revenue was $4.6 million versus their total expenditure of $5.6 million. And not that they overspent their budget, it's just that it's a timing that they went over. You know, some money had come in the year before for projects in that following year, so it's just timing, not that they overspent. And that they have currently about a little over $20 million in unfunded projects that are on their books they want to work on, just getting the funding to do that. Let's see, they did talk about considering some fencing in Imperial Estates, on that terraced area. I guess people are starting to dump trash out there. It's unfortunate. But so they did talk about doing some fencing. And in their meeting, they discussed the number 2 fire station, Georgetown development, and the Avalon subdivision. So things that we all talk about, they're talking about as well. That was the key notes I took away from that meeting. Okay, with that, Councilmember Griffon, thank you for coming.
Hello, Commissioners. Good evening, and staff, citizens all. I came up here with the same report.
Oh,
Joe
sorry.
and I sat together at the Galveston County Consolidated Drainage District meeting, and really the only thing that I would have mentioned or added to what Joe was saying is from prior year they had a balance of $9.6 million, and they spent $4.6. So they didn't spend about $4.8 million that they could have, but they did not spend that. And at the end of the year, they have $8,082,000 or something to that effect. And if you look at what they were saying there, they have $5.4 million that's unassigned. And Mayor Emeritus Kevin Holland, who's now chairing the Galveston County Consolidated Drainage District, wanted everybody to know that those funds are not unassigned. And they're not, because I personally want $3.5 million of that to go into the drainage over at 1959. And like you mentioned, they have some $20 million in projects. But what I think is important to understand, the $4 million that they get from tax revenue, if I look at this correctly, and I do have it here, from property taxes, they receive about $4,405,000. And I think that's 11 cents per $100 valuation in the city of Galveston County side of the city of Friendswood. And that same 11 cents is what we use at our city council just to fund our debt. And that has gone up because of the bond issuances. And it's extremely important to understand these people get things done better than any other political organization that I've ever seen. They move like nothing I've ever seen. They can get things done, and I do believe that it's a testament to Kevin Holland in that for the first time in the history, Harris County Consolidated Drainage District is allowing Galveston Consolidated Drainage District to go on the Harris County side and defoliate on that side, which is going to help a lot of people just below Dixie Farm Road. And from our studies that we've all seen from Fraser and Nichols, and they've actually spent $41,000 to supplement that study to actually see what kind of credits that we're going to get from Imperial Estates. But from what they're able to do on that side is going to help everybody up there, and I'm just kind of just thrilled to see what they can do. And if they do raise some taxes on it, y'all know that I'm as conservative as Rush Limbaugh ever was, but this money is spent in such a just it's not frivolous in any way what they do with their funds, and what they can do is really important, not only especially on the Galveston County side, but our people over there on the Harris County side too. They do a really great job, and they have a really good team working over there right now. But I just wanted to mention that. I enjoyed seeing you the other morning, and Dick, get on back over there, and we'll keep reporting on it. But other than that, I don't have anything. I would like to mention our horse, Say I Won't. She's a 3-year-old filly, and she had her second race, and she won it.
Wow.
Yeah, and just today, Just Mite's little sister, she's her name's Dynamite Gift, and she won her race today. So it's the first race that she's won. So this week we had a good week. We had 2 firsts and a second.
All right.
Go Griffon Farms.
All right. Well, thank you. Okay. With that, staff report, Aubrey?
Yes. So the March 7th City Council meeting is coming up, and the PUD ordinance public hearing and council consideration will be on that agenda. Also, our P&Z annual report. State of the City is coming up next Tuesday, March 1st. I sent out the invitation if anybody wants to attend. Just RSVP directly to the chamber. There is I sent out the email. There's a land use webinar coming up on March 10th. Boriquez Law Firm. Alan's really good. He's a good presenter. I really enjoy just his information. He's very practical and is very knowledgeable of municipal law. So if anybody can attend that, let me know and I'll get you registered. It's a webinar. It's from 9 to 12, I think. Then there is a downtown parking webinar coming up. I'll be sending the information out for that. It's March 23rd. It's just a 1 hour. It's presented by Texas Downtown Association. And I'll have it, just show the video. We'll have the webinar in our conference room up here. But if you can't make it, they send the recordings of them, so I'll send out the recording afterwards. Unfortunately, I just pay the $25 to watch it in one place. So you kind of have to, if we want to watch it together, you have to come up here. We'll have to post a possible, quorum agenda. But like I said, otherwise, I can send the recording afterwards. So hopefully they have some good information about downtown parking.
Aubrey, do you need to keep track of how many people are going to the State of the City, just in case we have?
No.
You okay on that?
No,
Okay, because I know at least 2 are going right now. I know.
Okay, yeah. No, because you won't be discussing city business.
Okay,
It's
fair
the
enough.
state of the city, so,
We're just listening.
yes, no talking.
Okay, Christina, anything? She really appreciates me calling her. Karen, anything?
No, sir.
Okay. With that, this February 24th, 2022 Planning and Zoning regular meeting is now adjourned. Thanks, everybody, for coming.